right. Welcome to the Compassionate Corner podcast, where we share stories of resilience, cancer, and hope. I'm your host, Roya Soleimani Winner, and this podcast is a voice for the International Society of Children with Cancer, ISCC. In each episode, you'll hear from survivors, caregivers, and medical professionals who have firsthand experiences with cancer. They share their journeys, lessons learned, and moments of unexpected joy and hope. Whether you're facing a similar battle, supporting someone who is, or simply seeking to understand and learn from these powerful stories, you found the right place. Thank you for being with us as we explore these extraordinary stories of resilience and hope right here at the Compassionate Corner. Everyone, welcome to our first episode of this podcast. It is an absolute joy to be with you, and we are beyond lucky to have as our very first guest, Dr. Toska Zomorodian. Welcome, Dr. Zomorodian.
Thank you so much, Roya June. I'm very honored and proud to be here with you today.
We are so lucky to have you. Thank you for taking time out of your day, carving it out in the morning here. And we are really excited to dive in. If okay with you, can I share a bit about your background before we dive into questions?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Toska Zomorodian is a pediatric hematologist oncologist at the Downey Kaiser Medical Center. She was born in Iran and moved to Southern California when she was 15 years old. Initially, it was her intellectual curiosity that attracted her to hematology and oncology, but a clinical rotation as a medical student brought her close to children who suffer from blood diseases and cancer. It was their courage, strength, and sense of optimism that she found inspiring. Dr. Zomorodian graduated from Brown University School of Medicine, completed her residency at Boston Children's Hospital and Harvard Medical School, her internship at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, and her fellowship in pediatric hematology oncology at Yale School of Medicine. Dr. Zomorodian, welcome again, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Roya June.
Can you start by sharing a bit about your own professional journey? You have an incredible background with all of the accolades, of course, so much expertise. What led you to specialize in pediatric hematology and oncology? And if you could even describe to us what that is.
Sure. Pediatric hematology oncology is a field of pediatrics that basically deals with a variety of blood disorders, whether they're benign or malignant. And of course, if it's malignant or cancer, then it would be any kind of malignancy. Could be blood cancers like leukemia, all the way to brain tumors and bone tumors and liver, kidney, any part of a person's body. And my journey was not, exactly straight because when I was in undergraduate, I did want to be a doctor, but my experiences during my undergraduate experience were pointing me towards neurology and Alzheimer's disease. So it was kind of the opposite end of the spectrum in age. But during medical school, the first couple of years, we do basic sciences. And we had this study group because there was no way to really study everything. We would delegate the different topics to different people. And, it seemed more natural for me to go with the sciences that were about biochemistry and molecular biology. Those classes were easier for me. So that's what I mean by that sort of initial curiosity towards a field. But, it seemed like this is sort of rite of passage that I have to study this, get good grades, pass on to the clinical part of medical school. And I helped my friends and my classmates getting those steps done. So when second year came and we had an oncology class, I was, interested because this is a field where you are dealing with basic science every day. When you want to look at a blood slide, you have to put it under the microscope and look at the cells and identify the disease. The drugs that are available for certain treatments are targeted against receptors on a molecular cell level. So it was interesting that, you could actually, if I'm good at this type of field, this is a clinical practice of that basic science. So I enjoyed the thought of that, but I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do, if I wanted to do oncology or, hematology. But, again, third year is about experiencing different rotations. And I kind of felt that I was more happy. I was more less exhausted, if you will,
Yeah.
when I had to deal with children. I
Mm.
had seemed to be more of a sort of space and availability to them. I liked being with them. And so I kind of decided I'm going to work with kids no matter what I do.
Mm.
And then I had to do a rotation. I wanted to come back to Los Angeles. So I looked for a rotation at Children's Los Angeles. And honestly, the only available rotation was pediatric hematology oncology. And I took it just to be back in LA area. A little nervous that, oh, this is going to be sad. I'm not going to like it, but what am I going to do? And my mentor at the time, the doctor I followed, Dr. Hofstra, Thomas Hofstra, who's still at Children's Los Angeles, he really took me under his wings, and he took me to the inpatient side, outpatient side, told me his own journey, and just meeting these families and these patients, I just fell in love with them. And you realize that these kids are so much more mature, so much more brave
Mm.
than a child of their age should be, frankly. And you just it kind of pulls that compassion out of you, that you really want to be there for them. You want to make this experience a little less hectic, a little more easy to go through. I at the time, during medical school residency, you work a lot. So you're working 80 to 100 hours a week. You should
Wow.
be tired. You should be, maybe irritable, bitter. You can't do anything for yourself. But I found myself waking up every morning wanting to go to work.
Wow.
And so that's kind of how I ended up in this field. And from that moment, fourth year medical school and onwards, I never changed my plan. Everything about residency and fellowship was about maximizing my opportunities to be in this field, learn more about this field, and see how I can find my own space within it. And I am lucky, as you said, I fell into really amazing, top institutions that, I mean, I would look and say, wow, this guy who's like my mentor right now, who the doctor I'm following, is the guy who wrote the textbook for
Mm.
this field.
Yeah.
I'm talking to Dr. Nathan and Dr. Oxty and Oski, and these people wrote the textbook for pediatric hematology oncology.
Wow.
So I'm just honored that I was given those opportunities throughout my career to get to be where I am today. And I'm really happy that I chose this field. I feel I'm still that sort of giddy person that when I woke up, I enjoy my work. I love going to work, and I love being there for these kids.
It shows. I mean,
Thank
your
you.
passion and your expertise, it just radiates from you. And for those who are listening to us today and not watching on YouTube, I'm sure they could feel your energy. And thank you for sharing that background. And
Mm.
you mentioned, these children who are facing sort of unbelievable, unfathomable cases. And so, and I think receiving a cancer diagnosis for anyone, especially for a child, can be so life altering. How do you approach this moment with each patient and their
Mm.
family? Like, how do you yourself even get into the mindset every time when you're delivering that news, of course, and then helping them through the healing process as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's something that definitely is one of the hardest things that anybody can do. For me, it was challenging initially, and I spent obviously years watching other doctors do that and slowly picked up little ideas from each of them. And now it's almost second nature to me, because I know what I need to do, and I have my game plan. I don't have words or sentences necessarily, but I know feeling I need to create.
Yes.
And I know I kind of have a feeling of what they're experiencing. And the way I see the families and the patients is fear and confusion, and just desperation. And at the moment that I'm giving that news, there is no sign of courage. There is no sign of anything, just utter out of like loss of control over your circumstances, your child's circumstances. And I kind of have to be the the base. I have to ground them. I have to be the strong one. I have to be the brave one. I have to be the one who has a hindsight that's 2020. And so that's the energy that I need to offer them. And I need to create a sense of trust with the families that this is really scary. I know. But I've been here with other families and I've done this and I know what I'm doing and I know how I'm going to get you through this. I need you to trust me. And that I acknowledge their sense of fear and confusion. I always tell them you're in a fog and nothing I say really makes sense right now. So all I want you to focus on is to know that I've been doing this and I have lots of families that I've taken through this journey. And if you just trust me and follow my lead, in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, things will settle, the dust will settle, and you'll find your feet and you'll
Mm.
realize that you have this courage, you have this ability, and you're going to be fine. And I think the other factor, other than acknowledging them and establishing a sense of trust, is hope.
Yeah.
And hope, again, it's because I have the hindsight of 2020. I can tell stories. I can remind them that I had patients like them who are now survivors and who are doing well. I can talk to them about research and I can talk to them about the clinical data out there. So I always, I lied, I guess. I take it back. I do say some sentence that I like saying. What I say is, most people wonder why or ask me why I do this for a living. And I tell them because I I do this because I watch children live. That's what I
Yes.
say. And
Yes.
it's sort of shocking to them because I know they're thinking that it's the opposite, that I must be seeing children die. And how would I possibly do this? But the truth is 90% overall chance of cure, 80 to 90% is really good. And I
Yeah.
wish it was 100%, but it is still more than the majority.
Yeah.
It's a really good statistics that you should trust. And I always say, if you could get 90% lottery today, would you go buy it? Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
then. So I need you to settle into that number and say, I have 90% chance of curing my child.
Yes.
And so this war is worth fighting. And this person has had experience with this diagnosis and will get me through it. The other thing is pediatric oncology is a small field.
Yeah.
And we cannot do this unless we collaborate. And since the 1950s, we have had collaboration. And I truly believe, unlike adult cancers, that's where the advancement has come in joining powers to find
Mhm.
the medications, to find the better treatments. And that kind of camaraderie has given us the 90%. So, in some ways, also, what's reassuring to families is that I am not the doctor, California, who's come up with this regimen. So I always say, if I get breast cancer and I go to City of Hope or UCLA or Minnesota or Boston, I might get different regimens for breast cancer. What's reassuring is that no matter what you get in pediatric cancer, the national standard is the same treatment. So at least they don't have to wonder what would they find if they went to a different center, if they went to a bigger center, if
Yeah.
they went to an all children's hospital. It doesn't matter. A standard of therapy for that diagnosis would be initially the same with
Mm.
very minimal changes. Relapses, second line treatments, clinical trials, that's different. But first line treatments are the same. So there is faith in that, I always say, not only are you being treated by me locally, but you're also being treated by the national expert because the
Yes.
national expert identified this treatment as what we need to do for your child. I'm the deliverer. So there's more reassurance in that, I guess.
Of course. And you, again, I can only imagine the feeling and how you've grown in sharing that news. And I can only imagine the family's reactions, after they sort of take a breath and the time comes and a little bit of understanding of the process. What role does community play in the
Yeah.
journey of a pediatric cancer patient. You've talked about the therapies and the regimens, just sort of the broader community that has to hold this family and hold this child as they're going through this. Can you talk a bit about that and share what you've seen throughout the years?
Absolutely. So I think again, we introduce them to our team, and I always say we're your second family,
Mm,
and they become very familiar with the nurses that we have, the social workers, child life, who's actually, they're underestimated in their knowledge and in their abilities because they actually are trained. They have a master's in child development, so that they
wow.
can relate to the kid at their level, and make the journey a little bit easier. So that community, the medical community, I would say, is the primary line. The second line is school. All of these kids are in schools. I've watched school teachers come to the hospital, bring homework. We
Wow.
actually establish a way for them to be homeschooled, not in the sense of like virtual school for regular kids, but in the sense that they're not going to fail out of ninth grade, but they will be able to study at their energy level, and the teacher will work with them so that they can still accomplish their homeworks. If today is only 1 hour I can give, I'll do that. Tomorrow I can do 30 minutes. The next day I can do 2 hours. But you work with the child so that they know they have the backup to continue their schooling, and still have the hopes of whatever goal is in front of them. And the school and the medical team work together on that. And then lastly, the community around the families, whether it's family, neighbors. I mean,
Mm,
I've heard neighbors who put the family on a schedule so that they could deliver food for them.
yeah.
I just attended a 1 mile run that the family did for pediatric cancer research, and the entire community, all the neighbors on the street had come out
Wow.
to run, and they brought toys so that they could do a toy fund, towards our clinics. It is really, the families are really honored and just supported by the community they have, and it's impossible not to want to be there for
Exactly.
them, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned, the school, the medical community, the broader community. Are there examples of organizations that you love who also
Yeah.
support pediatric cancer patients? You yourself have shared the journey of shaving your hair in solidarity with your patients. If you could talk us through some of that and your experience with the organizations, or even name some that you find to be the most impactful for
Sure.
kids going through this journey.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I shaved my head 2 years ago and last year again,
Amazing.
for pediatric cancer research as part of the St. Baldrick's Foundation. St. Baldrick's Foundation is an organization, a national organization that raises funds for specifically cancer research. And only 3% of the national funds, the NCI funds, are for cancer research is for children. The rest of it is
Mm,
for adult. So we really need, and to me, really, there are two important things in pediatric cancer. One is access. If there's 90% chance of cure, then access to that treatment is important to every child, whether they're within United States or all around the world.
of course.
The second is to develop better treatments, to develop better cures, and not just cures, but cures that don't include the complications that some of our treatments cause in these children. I'd like to save their life, but I'd like to save their life without future complications with
Yes.
their heart, with their lungs, with their kidneys, with everything else that they might have to deal with. St. Baldrick's focuses on the research because researchers out there who are doing really good work, they can actually get the funding to get that done. And I really believe in that foundation. The other side, the access, obviously, is like some programs that are like International Society for Children with Cancer, because you can have all the treatments you have, but if the child is not getting that treatment because
Yeah.
of lack of funding, lack of drugs in that country, then it's no use. And it's not just Iran. There are other countries like India and Pakistan, Malaysia, China, that are limited in their availability of the drugs. I once met a St. Jude's Hospital physician, Dr. Pui, who is a big researcher in leukemia, and he was telling me about China. I believe it's also changing, but he told me that at the hospital, 90% chance of cure for leukemia, but the doctor would say, do you have money? Or do you have
Mm.
insurance? If you don't, here's your child, take your child home.
Oh my goodness.
So it's heartbreaking to think that access would have to be a problem, especially when the cures are so good. The other access is what you call the community support, and to bring this experience more joyful for them. If you can do that, that's the trick, right?
Yeah.
The journey is scary and hard and painful, so if you can balance out this experience with little joys, it's important. So Make a Wish Foundation, for example, is huge. Children 2 years and up, they can come up with, I tell them to think big,
Yes.
whatever that they want to, have something outside the box that you might not be able to do otherwise. I would say most of our children are around age 5, so they all go to Disney World. But I've had kids who, for example, decided they want to work like as a vet for a week, and so they spent a
Oh,
week working like that. I've had kids who wanted to go to the World Cup, and they went to meet Messi and attend the World Cup. I've had kids who wanted to go to Japan and do an anime. Um, One of my patients wanted to meet the Lakers. So these kind of little VIP treatments that bring them joy. It's important. We also have a program, a nonprofit organization that's established actually by a mother of a child with cancer, and it's called Beads of Courage. And what they do is, and it's again spreading and it's becoming more of a national program. So for every experience that the child goes through, we give a bead.
mm,
For that, for example, we accessed your central line. That's one bead. You got a dose of chemo. That's another bead. You had a lumbar puncture. That's another bead. Every time they come, they get a little Ziploc that has those beads in it,
mm.
and they can add it to the string that they have at home. And at the end of it, it's a symbol of the journey that they took, the experiences that they had to endure. And it's a sign of their pride and their courage. So I had a kid who came to clinic. He's like 6 feet tall now, but he held his bracelet,
Yes.
but it was taller than him, and he's looking up at it. And I
Wow.
have a picture of that. So it's making these moments memorable for them, in a positive way, with positive energy rather than negative, to remind them of what they've gone through. There are other ones. We have a program that brings snacks, and we have it in the snack room. So they deliver. There are programs that deliver cake, for example, to the families on their birthdays, to celebrate each birthday. And like you said, we have a bell, to kind of celebrate the end of chemotherapy, but we also celebrate every year that goes
Yes.
by. We throw confetti and we sing the song, and they ring the bell. We give them a prize. And so it's a way of making the journey more fun and exciting. And like I said, celebrate the wins,
Yes.
because those are truly remarkable and amazing experiences that I think at the end of the day make them more mature, make them more courageous in whatever they choose to do in the rest of their life.
Thank you for walking us through that because, it could probably feel very lonely and very isolating. And it sounds like there are all these organizations and community programs and, even having that visual representation, right? Like you said, I can
Mhm.
picture, now a 6 foot tall young adult, with pride holding their
Yeah,
bead of courage. So thank you for sharing that.
sure.
I mean, hearing you talk about the work and about your patients and their families, it shows that you've really found your calling and the passion in working with pediatric cancer patients.
Mhm.
What keeps bringing you to work every day? What keeps that passion going for you?
Um, I think just knowing that I'm making a difference, and knowing that it's good to know that what you do is meaningful to other humans and other
Yeah.
people. And I think at the end of the day, what gives us give our lives meaning, we all find it in different ways. You do it in your programs that you do by reaching out to other people, human connection, human support, the way we connect with other humans in our world truly give us meaning at the end of the day, I believe. And I feel when I go to work, I know that it's my task to connect with these children, with these parents. As a parent myself, I think it made it more meaningful and gave me perspective. I always say, um, my life's vision, the way I look at the world around me, way I see my own purpose in life changed because of the field that I chose. So nothing else matters. It What matters is to be there for other people in this world and to give them love, to give them compassion, to give them whatever support that you can give them to take away from their fears. In my job, it's a career, it's a job, it's the way I make my money, but I'm also accomplishing that.
Yes.
So it in that way, it's very purposeful, and it's rewarding, and it's inspiring, because if I'm having my own fears for something silly and not cancer related, watching these parents, watching these children, it brings me to perspective, and it gives me a way of regrounding myself and saying, you know what, this whatever I'm going through is not a big deal. Look at these guys, look at these people. If they can do that, I can do this. And
Yeah.
so I do still wake up every morning, and from the moment I go, like I might have on my drive home, I might have 17 different things in my head, and my kids this and my work this, and but when I get to work, it's kind of like I'm focused, and I those hours, I don't know how they pass, because
Yeah.
I have what I have to do, and I love what I have to do, and it's important. So I'm blessed in that way. So
Thank you for sharing. And I think the remembering our shared humanity, remembering the perspective that you shared is just a great reminder for anyone in any field. I
mhm.
think, but especially in the work that you do. Thank you for helping us remember that and just sort of like shake off the little things that we might get, worried about or hung up on, because there is so much life around us and so much to be grateful for.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
to that point, it makes me wonder, what are some examples or some of the most touching moments? I'm sure there's been many, but some that really have stayed in your heart when working with your patients, these, young children, young adults, and their families.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I kind of joke, and at work, I used to call these kids my children. And then I'm like, I have too many white hairs to have children who are 2 or 5 years old. So I call them my grandchildren.
Oh, so sweet.
And then I actually joke and I say, I actually have grandchildren,
Yes.
because some of my patients have had children.
Wow.
So I think those are the touching things, because truly we spend so much time with these families that we become closely interlinked with them. So their accomplishments feel like my accomplishments, if you will. If your child, goes to college and, you're proud of them, I feel the same way about my children at work. Sometimes people say your kids, I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm my patient. It's not my kid who had this, it happened. But I say I'm old enough that I have gone to a wedding of one of my patients.
Wow.
I'm old enough that my patient Kayla, who happened to actually relapse and go through bone marrow transplantation, she actually rotated and volunteered in our department
Wow.
while she was at UCLA, and then she is just graduating from George Washington University Medical School, and she is starting her internal medicine rotation or residency. And so I'm old enough to have one of my patients graduate from medical school. So that's an enormous accomplishment. And Yes, I have had kids who, patients who come and say, "Oh, I got married and here's my baby." And I take a
Oh.
picture with my grandchild and put it on my, so I think those are the most touching experiences. And I think you and I have, talked briefly about those patients that I don't save.
Yeah,
And I think those have impacted me even more to some extent because it's supremely touching. It's heartbreaking and inspiring at the same time to think that I couldn't save a child. And the family is grateful to me, and
yeah,
the family wants to keep in touch with me. So that's just mind blowing. And to watch these families who don't save their child, who can't save their child, still contribute to the world of pediatric cancer is humbling.
of
And
course.
so my patient, Donovan, had a brain tumor and we lost him at 7.
Mm.
The parents were, white collared business MBAs, and they quit their jobs and they started a nonprofit organization called Donovan Smile.
Oh,
And to this day, I think it's been probably 10 years. To this day, they raise money, they buy toys, and they give toys to the hospitals
no,
in this area. So Children's Orange County, all of the Kaisers, and they still reach out to me. They still want to know if a family needs help. The patient I mentioned, Reagan, just had a mile run to raise funds for pediatric cancer. She was 5, and it's now 5 years since she passed. And to go to these events and to see these families thrive, frankly, and knowing that the pain is still there,
of
that
course.
I just have to, you know, see them for 5 seconds, and just seeing me initially brings them tears. We talk about their children, but to see that they took that pain and they made it into something incredibly positive, that they lost their child, but they want to give back to the other children who hopefully will make it, who hopefully will survive. That is, to me, incredible. And there are lots of organizations. And if you do a little digging, you realize it was started by parents of children with cancer. So that to me is truly inspiring. The other thing I want to mention is those children who, for lack of better word, I call it a miracle. I call it my miracle children.
Yes.
These are children who literally were in hospice. And then we kind of pulled something we found. We said, nobody's tried this. Let's try this. And they try it and they're alive. We say
Wow.
every year when I see them, I'm like, so a child named Sophia had another named Camilla. We were literally arranging for hospice care for these families. And then we said, such and such hospital has this clinical program. They've never tried this. It's a phase 1. Let's try it. It's my personal philosophy is first do no harm.
Of
If
course.
it seems like it's crazy and out there and might have complications, I wouldn't recommend it. But if it seems safe and not dangerous to the child, if it's new and if we're at the end of our other options, we try. And then when it works, is truly, truly,
A
truly
miracle.
just a gratitude I feel in my heart that, my gosh, what did you do? And Sophia won the reading competition, and she is now a 10th grader. When
Wow.
I met her, she was 5. And so to see that, I call it a miracle, but I truly, when you really think about it, it's just, again, my religion is science.
Of course.
I believe in science. And I believe that that miracle is that scientist who thought, well, what the heck, let's try this. And we are developing more and more targeted therapies right now. And the future is bright because these scientists are doing things very, very important and you know creative to
Yeah.
get these treatments under control without the other complications of systemic chemotherapy that we have to put these children through. So the future is bright, and I look forward to not having a job, frankly. To,
Well, that, yes. I mean,
you know, I can
hearing,
retire.
yes. And I wanted to ask actually what your hopes are for the future. I think we you touched on that. And Uh, just I want to sit for a moment in honor of the families who have lost their children and are still honoring their legacies and helping other
Yes.
families cope again through this sort of, it goes against nature to imagine that that is someone's scenario, and yet that they have turned that absolute anguish and heartbreak into
Mm.
something to help other families. And to, it's not a club I think any of them wanted to be a part of, but to know that
Mhm.
they are helping one another is incredibly inspiring.
Absolutely. I think no one wants to be in that position. There are many ways people can react to such experiences. I honestly can say that the majority of our families find their wings, find their wings to this terrible thing has happened to me, but I can't let it get me down,
Yeah,
and the pain is there and everyone has accepted it. I always say you can't get rid of it. Don't think that you're gonna wake up one day and the pain's gone. But what you respond, how you react to that pain, you can take the positive energy or the negative energy. And I'm really, like I said, it's not that anybody's teaching them, and it's incredible that majority of them, maybe a handful, can't and suffer and stay in that pain, but majority of them find those wings and find the way they can celebrate their children's memory by doing something positive again in connection to this field. And their trajectory, their life trajectory changes, right?
of
Their
course.
perspective, their goals in life have changed, but in some ways for the better. It got them to be stronger and find that compassion in their own hearts to give back. So
Yeah.
that's unbelievable and worth learning from.
That brings me sort of to a final question around, your own experiences, these trials and tribulations you experience with families and children. You mentioned yourself as a parent as well. How have all of these sort of collectively shaped your own perspective on life and hope and resilience?
Yeah. I like I said, I think I have the luxury of being reminded on a daily basis about the role of love, about
Mm,
connection, about the importance of human relationships in your life. So I think I have that luxury. I not only try to live it, but I also try to pass it on to my own children. And I guess I can say that I'm grateful that my children are healthy and my children are doing well. And I don't take that lightly, but I also know that what I want from them is for them to be good people,
yes.
to understand the value of love, to the value of being kind, being compassionate, and that comes up a lot, in their complaints about their lives. I'm not easy. I just turn it around and bring it to the point that what you're describing, I understand you're upset about whatever that is, but realize that what's more important is this, and
Yeah.
I try not to be annoying.
Every
But
mom, we try that in every situation, but
that's right.
you
But
have this perspective.
exactly, but I bring perspectives to them, and I think they have learned, and I see that they live it too, in their relationships with their friends, and they watch me and what I do. My daughter specifically kind of grew up with me at work. I had no babysitter nearby, so I would take her to the nursing station, and
Wow.
she grew up coloring with the patients and learning about them and watching these bald kids around her. And so she has developed a more of a sense of that than my other children. All of them know what I do. And
Yeah.
I have two stepkids, and two of my own kids. And I'm honored to watch them grow and be good people. And honor the family that they have, the health that they have, and the relationships that they have above other noises in your life, if you will.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Zomorodian, for sharing sort of the international view. And I wanted to sort of zero in a bit on your experience, particularly with ISCC and how you became familiar with Mahak, which is the pediatric cancer hospital in Iran, and just help us understand a bit more and contextualize that in your personal experience and also what we should know about Mahak and pediatric cancer in Iran.
Sure. So I actually, when the first time that I heard about Mahak was when I was in a residency, pediatric residency at Children's Hospital of Boston, and they had offered an international travel award to do some kind of a clinical work. And I wanted to visit Iran. And as I had said, I wanted to do pediatric hematology oncology. So through family and friends, I had established a summer program for myself, so to go and do a rotation in the field in Iran and kind of get to sense what it's like there. This is now 2001, 2002 when I did this. I got the award and I arranged to go to Iran. When I went there, it was a bunch of hospitals that I was able to find rotations through. And one was Ali Asghar, one was Sina. And somebody said to me, new hospital is about to be built and it's going to be called Mahak. And, the Mahak Foundation had existed for raising funds, but there was no hospital yet. But now this was a new hospital being built by Dr. Karbasizadeh, and they wanted to show it to me. So I went there and I visited the skeleton of the hospital and how this hospital will be just as professional and complete a hospital in the West, in the United States. And Dr. Karbasizadeh's ideas were grand, and the vision was so big that also included having apartment complexes throughout the city to have available for the families who are coming to Tehran for this. And the rest of my summer, frankly, was heartbreaking because I went through these hospitals and I saw the ones that are public government, hospital were so lacking. It was maybe 3 beds in one room, and on top of it there were like 25 kids sitting because there was no available space to put these children. The doctor, I worked with a lovely amazing lady, Dr. Vasour, who was the pediatric hematologist oncologist there. She would walk around with her microscope and look under the microscope and diagnose and treat, and she would tell me there is no medication, there is no IV fluids, there's nothing, there's no Tylenol. They would write prescriptions and the families had to go find it somewhere on the black market, and some of these families weren't even literate, so it was difficult to figure out how to help these families. And meanwhile, these families are so poor, they're living on the street outside the hospital. So seeing that was really devastating to me, to just, how is this even possible? How can we help them? And I knew even my own cousins, when I went to visit, all of the family came, brought me flowers, and my cousin made all of the family buy their own flowers and take them home. They said, we can't have 40 flower bouquets here. You're
Yeah.
gonna buy your own flowers from us, and we're gonna give the money to Ali Asghar. So that's how from home to home people were raising funds for Mahak. So when I got back here finally a few years later and became a physician in pediatric hematology oncology, I learned about ISCC through family and friends, and I met the team here and Feresh June, and I realized what an incredible thing she's doing. And if you know her, you know that it's coming from her heart. And the whole team, from Susan June to Feresh June, they are so transparent, and their love and their compassion is so clear that you just you can't talk to them and not want to help them. And so initially I offered whatever I could do. I would come to your events, I will try to recruit family and friends. Eventually they developed a medical advisory board that I was part of. And the idea was, how could we perhaps physicians, whether we're pathologists or radiologists or pediatric hemonc, how could we group together and see how we can be available to the physicians of Mahak in Iran? And then that grew into more relationship with the team here. And this past year, they honored me by adding me to the advisory board, and I'm happy to be part of it. And I'm grateful that I'm part of this amazing team, and I hope that we can grow it bigger, be more available, not just to Iran, but to the rest of the world. That's how I grew into my relationship with ISCC and Mahak now. And I look forward to being able to go back to Iran again and visit and see how we can interlink more with them. And the good news is, as computer has grown over around the world has become such a small place.
Yes.
So especially pediatric hematology oncology, we're very, we're an email away from physicians in Europe, from physicians in Iran. I always say pediatricians are nice people.
Yes, it
So
shows.
people who go into the pediatric fields are tech generally humble and willing to help. So we hope to develop that, and make this world an even smaller place and helping these kids even more.
You're all connected by the same love and I think drive to help kids.
Yes.
And it is beautiful and inspiring. And thank you for walking us through, understanding the global context, understanding that your own relationship with Mahak and with Iran and now with ISCC. Thank you for serving on the board and for, helping us understand these really big, some seemingly scary topics and understanding them in the context of real life and hope and the opportunity, as you said, to let kids live and heal. So thank you for walking us through that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for just being such an incredible source of inspiration for the work you do every day, Dr. Zomorodian, and for sharing your time with us here to kick off the Compassionate Corner podcast. I can't imagine starting with anybody else and being able to just really understand this field a little bit more, understand the perspective of you as a clinician, and then, of course, the families that you work with, and just the heart and passion and compassion that you bring to all of them. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Roya June. I'm honored to be here, and thank you for doing this. It's really, truly an incredible role that you have, and I think it's an important story to tell and bring people for this connection online. And I hope everyone remembers this and finds a place in their heart to give back to the world.
May
Thank
we
you for
end
this
on that
opportunity.
yes, may we end on that beautiful note, and thank you for all that you do with ISCC and all of the many organizations that you mentioned. And now, friends, at the close, we want to emphasize just doing a little legal disclaimer language here that the opinions expressed by myself as the host and any guest on the podcast are not direct medical advice. We strive to provide valuable insights and information, and it's important to understand that the views shared here are personal opinions and experiences. Of course, we highly recommend consulting with a healthcare professional or qualified expert for personalized advice. Thanks so much for spending time with us in the Compassionate Corner, and we'll see you next time. Again, Dr. Zomorodian, thank you so much for your time today, and we will remember your kindness and your messages of love and hope.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining us. The Compassionate Corner podcast is produced by the International Society for Children with Cancer. I'm your host, Roya Soleimani Winner. And a special thanks to the incredible ISCC team, our producer, Susan Shahidi, and technical director, Sogol Nikumaram, and our amazing editor, Sharsad Sabet. Music is by artist Sina Sarlak. And now at the close, we want to emphasize that the opinions expressed by the host, that's me, and guests on this podcast are not medical advice. While we strive to provide valuable insights and information, it is important to understand that the views shared here are personal opinions and experiences. We highly recommend consulting with healthcare professionals or qualified experts for personalized advice. Thanks again for spending time with us in the Compassionate Corner. We look forward to seeing you real soon.